We call the May 16, 2022 meeting of the Mojave County Board of Supervisors to order. After I turn my microphone on, I'm going to call this meeting to order. If you'll please rise and join me in an invocation along with the Pledge of Allegiance. Lord, we thank you and praise you today for this great nation, state, and county that you've given us, Lord. Please give us the wisdom to run it wisely, Lord. We ask for protection for our employees, Lord. Many of them have dangerous jobs. They're working out on the highways and in the heat. We just ask that you protect them and bring them home safely to their families' loving arms, Lord. Protect our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines, Lord, our firefighters and our police officers, Lord, who have dangerous jobs. Bring them home safely to their families' loving arms. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The Board of Supervisors may by motion recess into executive session to receive legal advice from the board's attorneys on any item contained in this agenda pursuant to ARS 38-431.03 A3, 4, and 7. A motion and action to call for an executive session to be held at June 6, 2022 at 9 a.m. for discussion and consultation with legal counsel in accordance with ARS 38-431.03 A3, 4, and 7.
So moved.
Second. You've heard that motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it, do have it. So ordered. Mr. Attorney, any legal?
Nothing today, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Committee or legislative reports. Supervisor Bishop, are you on the line? Maybe we'll come back to her. Supervisor Angus?
Nothing this morning.
Supervisor Johnson?
Nothing, Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Lingenfelter?
Thank you, Chairman Gould. I'd like to offer just a few updates on the water legislation that Mojave County has an interest in. On the rural management area front, we are expecting to see new language for the governor's introduced Arizona Water Authority early this week. And modifications, we believe, will include additional transparency, governance, and makeup of the committees. Mojave County and others in rural Arizona continue to focus on forgivable loans to rural areas for water infrastructure projects. We also believe underlying protections, in rural Arizona are crucial in advance of asking taxpayers to invest in water recharge projects. Without those protections, taxpayers could be paying to put water back into the ground through recharge projects that other entities could pull right back out in the absence of no rural groundwater laws. Fourth priority water. There were a couple of rumors interesting last week, and I spoke to Leo Biasucci when he was in town last week, that the Senate was going to move the Harquahala bill without considering also the priority 4 bill that we have. They found out about this and were able to prevent that from happening. Our delegation's goal is to continue to have Harquahala, which is 2055, the McMullen and Butler Basin bill, which is 2095, and on priority 4, Colorado River Water bill, which is 2389, all tied together in one bill. We'd like to prevent the legislature from continuing their siloed approach to water legislation and consider all these items at the same time during this session. Happy to announce that on the tribal water settlement issue, which this county has been a party to that negotiation for several years now. Last week, the House bill, HR 7633, approving the Wallapai tribe water settlement, was heard by the House Subcommittee on Water, Oceans, and Wildlife during its meeting on Thursday, May 12th at 2:00 p.m. Eastern Time. Several of the stakeholders, including Mojave County, provided written testimony in support of that negotiated settlement. and Wallapai Tribal Council Chairman, Dr. Clark, was a witness, a physical witness at the hearing, and that continues to move forward. And last but not least, again, on the rural management area legislation, this board passed a resolution not long ago in support of the legislature doing something about rural management areas. Coconino County took our resolution. They adopted the same resolution, and I believe Yavapai County is also going to be adopting that soon. Myself, the chairman of the Coconino County Supervisors, Supervisor Horseman, and Yavapai County Supervisor Michaels are working on an op-ed piece with the message for the legislature not to leave out rural Arizona yet again when they work on water in a special session. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Bishop, do you have anything?
Thank you.
There we go. Did you say no, thank you? Okay. Thank you, Supervisor. I attended the pro-life pregnancy care banquet yesterday, and we heard some testimony from some ladies, and it was very moving. We also have Coral with Senator Kelly's office. Coral, did you have something to tell us?
Good morning. Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair. Again, my name is Coral Evans, and I'm Northern Arizona Director for U.S. Senator Mark Kelly. I do have a few updates for the board. The first would be the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act. I just wanted the board to know that the extension bill passed the House last Wednesday and should be signed by the President, if not already, soon. Senator Kelly co-sponsored this bill to extend the RECA program by the DOJ for 2 additional years. He believes that the victims of nuclear testing should be compensated for the health issues that they've caused. He's going to continue to work and advocate for including the Mojave downwinders into this particular program. This 2-year extension prevents the program from expiring, so he can continue to work with Congressman Stanton and other members of the Arizona delegation to try to see if we can get Mojave County included. Supervisor Lindenfelter already mentioned the Wallapai Tribe and the Water Rights Settlement Act. I just wanted to make sure that you all knew that Senator Kelly, along with Senator Sinema and Congressman Tom O'Halloran, introduced this on the 4th of this month. And this is to ratify the Wallapai Tribe's Colorado River Water Settlement Agreement, which would deliver approximately 4,000 acre-feet of water per year to the tribe. Regarding this, the senator said in Arizona, water access is critical for the continued economic growth and job creation. As we navigate a historic drought, this bill provides long-term water security to the Wallapai members and delivers water to the Grand Canyon Skywalk. This is a major tourist attraction located within the community that supports the Mojave County economically. And then lastly, on the front of criminal justice, the senator has co-sponsored, or is currently waiting to be added as a co-sponsor, to the following 3 bills. The first one is the Due Process Continuing Care Act. It is S.2697. This would allow for Medicare coverage of health care services for pre-trial detainees and provide exactly $50 million in planning grant funding for the states to implement this change. This is a big issue here in Arizona, as the cost of health care pre-trial is currently left to counties to take up. This is something that your sheriff requested that the senator co-sponsor, and he was happy to be included on this bill. Another one is the Social Security Fairness Act. This is S.1302. This eliminates the windfall prohibition for Social Security benefits for individuals who have a pension from state or local government. This is something that the Fraternal Order of Police requested that the senator co-sponsor. And then lastly, on the funding side, he's been a supporter of various law enforcement funding programs, including JAG at approximately $674.5 million, and the COPS grant at approximately $201 million, and then also the Bulletproof Vest Partnership. So I just wanted to provide those updates to the board and see if you have any questions or anything that you would like for us to look into.
Questions for Ms. Evans? Supervisor Angus?
Thank you so much, and I'll be seeing you later this week. The second bill that you talked about, the Medicare windfall, can you explain that a little?
Yeah, right now there's a prohibition on individuals who have served in state or local government from being able to collect their Social Security. And so this is a Fairness Act that rectifies that. And I can get more information if you need it.
Yes, please. So people who get like you said, it was the police wanted you to do it. The police union wanted you to do this.
I'm not sure if it was the police union. I know that it was something that the Fraternal Order of Police requested.
So in addition to all the pension they get, they want Social Security too. Is that what that means? I'm just trying to clarify it in my head.
Yeah, you know what? I don't have the details of it, so I'll make sure that I get that to you.
I appreciate
I'll actually
it.
send it to the county manager, and he can send that out to everyone.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Further questions for Ms. Evans? Supervisor Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know a lot of times law enforcement don't pay into Social Security, so you're gonna have to change that. If they don't pay in, they're not gonna get it. That was all.
Further questions for Ms. Evans? Thank you, ma'am. County manager report.
Good morning, Chairman, board members. Just a couple of quick items. First, just wanted to inform you that as of May 6th, staff completed the required U.S. Treasury portal and received confirmation regarding the second tranche of the ARPA funds. The information from the U.S. Treasury indicates that the funds should be transferred within 30 days. That's from that May 6th date. We believe the amount is going to be $20,606,000 and some change, which will bring the two-year total to $41,213,672. So, as discussed, we'll make you aware when we receive it, and then we'll get to programming projects as you see fit with the second tranche. The other item and the last item that I have is that the budget workshop is on Thursday, May 19. We look forward to presenting the budget to you and discussing it with you. Thank you.
Questions for the county manager? Hearing none. Thank you, sir. Approval of the April 18th, 2022 Board of Supervisor minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Heard that motion in second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it. Do have it. So order. We're going to go out of order a little bit here. We're going to go to item 41. Supervisor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate you moving this up the front. I'd like to get the federal guys back to work, so my money's well spent. I've invited Jason West, he's our field manager for Bureau of Land Management, up to give us an update on dumping, illegal dumping in the federal lands. I've been receiving quite a few calls, not only federal lands, state lands, everywhere. Maybe he'd give us an update, and then we can see what we want, maybe if we want to make some changes to our ordinance. Mr. West.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. Thank you for having us. We're also joined today by BLM Ranger of the Year, Carrie Wastel, and just wanted to introduce her. She has some technical specs for any questions that you might have, so we can get more information to you. Just want to give you a general overview of, as you know, federal land surrounds most of the cities within the county and also state land. So you generally will have a private property with a state buffer and then federal land around that for just about every community that we have in the county. And we're seeing a significant uptick in public dumping on federal lands, state lands, and city communities. And with respect to all the work that's going on with the Erase program, the combined patrols for the Sheriff's Office, local police departments, and the Bureau of Land Management, we have been able to make a dent, but our dent hasn't been what it needs to be. We're seeing just the expenditure of our funds that are set aside for hazmat is being done usually in the first 2 months of the year, and we're just not able to get to everything, whether it's a dumped abandoned RV, something that's been turned into a meth lab, hazardous material because it's got human waste in it, public dumping, exploding target trash, target litter, et cetera. We're just seeing an awful lot more hauled out onto state, federal, and private land. Met with Lake Havasu City. Also talked a little bit with the members of the board about what we can do about this. The cities have always provided incentives for folks by promoting free dump days at the city and county and community dumps. They've also, in Lake Havasu specifically, they give 6 free pickups a year for large items that you can call in and have people come pick up free of charge. And yet we still see an increase. And the city of Havasu right now is willing to put up signs that let folks know when those free dump days are, let them know that they have those 6 free dates. But what we found with a lot of things like this is that incentive isn't generating the change that needs to happen. So we're offering the carrots, but the carrots aren't being eaten. And so we're looking to see what we can do, working with our communities, with our elected officials and with our elected sheriff and our police departments to see if we can't provide a more of a disincentive to prevent this from happening. And what we're seeing is that the federal government is a little bit limited on what we're able to do with regards to public dumping. We do have a fine structure, a fee structure that starts at $100 for a fine if you're caught dumping on public lands, and that's less than it costs to fill up most of the vehicles that you would have driven here this morning. It's not really a deterrent. It doesn't stop any from driving on public land, and the fee structure for the dump itself is very minimal. I think it's $15 for a certain amount of weight. Very easy to do, but people still aren't using that, and we get all kinds of excuses from, I didn't have a tarp, so I didn't want to, they're just excuses. And so we're looking to work together to see if there's a way that we can disincentivize folks to go out. And with that $100 fine, we just don't see any change. It can be raised up to $500 potentially if there's hazardous material involved, and we can require a mandatory court appearance, which generally involves a drive to federal court in Flagstaff, but it still just is not a deterrent. We're seeing daily dumping, I think, you want to speak at all to the number of tickets that we're seeing?
We're probably averaging about 2 a month, but again, suspects are hard to catch, right? It's one of those crimes that occurs, so once we get a person, it would be nice to be able to take some more action on it. It's just one of those crimes that's really hard to identify a suspect at times, so. Yeah, we're averaging about 2 a month. We've got a lot of long-term camping that folks will leave tarps and equipment and stuff behind. And then we've got, like Jason said, the target shooters. We've got unauthorized structures. We've just got household waste from moving properties across town and multiple people in one property. And yeah, tough. It's been tough to prosecute.
And we do know that we have overwhelming community support to move on something like this. When we do a cleanup or when the community approaches us to do a cleanup, we have hundreds of people turn out. Organized groups like the Havasu Side-by-Side Club, the Havasu Four-Wheelers, the shooting community will turn out. The hiking community will turn out. People love their public lands and they want them to be clean. And so we believe that there probably isn't anybody that's going to stand up and say we don't support more strict, stringent measures to taking people to task when they're caught doing this. And so we just want to put that out. I know when the federal government stands up and says something, they can obviously be looked at like it's a thumb. And we're not that. We're trying to respond to what our community is asking us for. We're hearing, why aren't you doing more? Why aren't you stopping this? And so we'd like to work to do something to either enable our judges so that they have a mandatory fine that can't be reduced, or something that's a significant deterrent for folks when they go in. And then one of the things that we'd like to see is, working in collaboration with the other agencies, we'd like to see a real reward system so that a member of the community that wants to earn a little bit extra money, and by a little bit I mean somewhere between $3,000 to $5,000, if they catch somebody and they can get them turned in, that's a significant amount of money, and it would change behavior and help the community get a reward for bringing somebody forward that's harming our community and our public lands. And again, we believe we have overwhelming support for something like this. The community really wants to see people stop dumping. We're available for questions, thoughts, anything you'd like to hear more about.
have questions?
Can I add that Mojave County, you are great at caring for your communities. This is the only place I've worked where you have Mojave County Erase. Kevin's back there. They have had a tremendous impact. Even as we speak, one of the Erase County members is out with our BLM staff and the Bullhead off-road vehicle group cleaning up a site. So thank you so much for them. They've made a tremendous impact already.
And the positivity that they bring to the table. It's not easy to go back to the same site month after month and re-clean it, right? It's not easy to see all the work that you did just get dumped on, for lack of a better terminology.
Accumulation factor.
So it's a really good thing, and if there's any way to add more to the Erase program or bolster it or expand it, we would support that. Any questions for us?
Questions? Supervisor Lingenfelter?
Thank you, Chairman Gould. Thank you for your presentation today. You hit the nail right on the head. We live in an area that is fortunately very strong and rich in natural amenities, and I think most of the people that live here, we love that. What sort of things do you think that Mojave County could do to help?
That's a great question. So I think right now with that fee structure for the federal government, it's what we have, but it's not what we have the ability to change. What the Board of Supervisors can do is make recommendations to your code and your ordinance that allow you to have stricter, stringent fines, which include property seizure and large-scale fines. I think you have a $2,500 potential fine right now, but it's generally reduced down to $50 or $25, or people are let go if they commit to go clean up their mess, which again, it's not a deterrent. It's just not. And so you have the ability to put to your judges, you have a mandatory fine, not something that can be reduced down to nothing. It's basically the price of doing business. If you can fill up your truck for less to take your garbage out and dump it, that less than you're going to be fined, there's no incentive to stop doing it. And I'd like to see the county work with us and work with our law enforcement officers. Your sheriff is amazing. The relationships are intact right now. The police department relationships are intact, and we'd be willing to sit at the table to come up with solutions, but certainly a minimum fine as opposed to something that can be reduced down to nothing would be significant, especially if that hurt the belt, if there was a way to really get at somebody. And then we'd really like to see it promoted. So I know the papers reached out on this issue as well. They're interested in what's going on. I would really like to see when somebody's caught for this and a significant fine is levied, or if there's a property seizure, I'd like to see them on the front page. I'd like people to know that we're doing our job, that we're holding people accountable, and this is not a victimless crime. You're hurting your entire community, and you're hurting the lands which we all wish to enjoy together. So I appreciate the question. It's difficult, but we're willing to sit at the table to help come up with additional solutions, whether it be that reward system that goes in, and if there's grants available from the federal government, help support that reward system, or whether we come up with a reward system from the BLM that we can work together to promote. We'd like to reward the community that's working hard to keep the community clean, and we'd like to hold accountable the portion of the community that's not responsible and not taking care of what we cherish.
Thank you.
Supervisor Angus, any questions? No, thank you. Supervisor Bishop, do you have any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Currently, there's an RV parked at the end of the runway that appears that people are stripping the siding and various parts off of that. Is that on your land or state land?
That is on us. We're aware of it, and we have a contract that allows us to haul RVs, abandoned property off of public lands. Our contract is out of money right now, so it's on our radar, and our Chief Law Enforcement Ranger Officer Solons out of Havasu is working to see if we can get additional funds to pull that off. We do know that our community will show up if we ask. They'll show up to help us take it apart if needed, so it's something that we can address. But this is one of those things that we could track down, right? We could get a VIN number, we could find the owner, we could go after somebody, and we could really hit them for pulling it out
last
there.
week it had tires, now it has no tires.
Right, and it's missing more siding this week than it was last week.
And it's not more than 100 yards off of the state highway either, so it's pretty visible.
Yep.
How long can somebody camp on BLM land?
That's a great question. So we have a 14-day stay limit in the Lake Havasu area. I believe that's correct for Kingman as well. Out of Mojave County, but within our jurisdiction for the Colorado River District, you have long-term visitor stay areas, the La Posa, North, South, East, and West, which are in the Yuma office. And you can stay actually up to 6 months in those areas for, I think it's like $160. And that's where the majority of our abandoned vehicle issues happen, are in those longer-term stay areas. We're considering a long-term visitor area, which is congressionally designated for somewhere around the Lake Havasu area. It's something that's in our long-term planning, but it comes with a whole host of issues, but it also comes with a host of financial incentives to help us be able to take care of those areas. So 14 days, and if I might inject, we all know that Havasu, Kingman, Yuma, they're winter visitor communities. We bolster our numbers, in some instances fivefold. I think we jumped from 59,000 to well over 150,000 in Havasu alone. And with the amount of and this is I apologize, everybody, this is going to sound like government speak, so be ready. With the amount of money we have and the officers that we have, there's no way to enforce our 14-day stay limit.
Sure, and so I don't think it is enforced, because I drive past the Lone Tree Mountain area every day, and the area just north of Havasu Heights Boulevard. Those people have been there for the whole season.
That's correct. And what we shift our responsibility, or what we shift our primary focus on, is we put campground hosts in those areas. And if there's somebody that's going to cause trouble, if there's somebody that's going to disrupt the public peace, that's the person that we focus on for the 14-day stay limit. So we're able to narrow our focus on the troublemakers or the problem makers. We give the message to everybody that there's a 14-day stay limit, and I would say somewhere between 30 and 35% of people respect that and move on. But I would rather have my officers be able to respond to domestic violence issues, attempted murder issues, than dealing with the 14-day stay issue, especially when we have folks that are law-abiding, that are caring for their campsites, and that are being responsible on public lands. But when we find the individual that's cooking meth, or that's causing problems, that's going to start a fight, that has dogs off leashes that are going to bite, those are the folks that we want to move on, and we're following up with those. I want to say thank you to the county for the sheriff showing up after the COVID expiration of the misdemeanor warrant kind of pause. We did a combined effort, and we were able to move a lot of folks that had misdemeanor warrants off public lands and get them back on a positive track. So I really appreciate the combined patrol effort that was done with the BLM.
And I think Supervisor Johnson has the same problem across from Sarah Park on the south side of Lake Havasu. Those people are camping there.
That's actually city property underneath the city lease that's BLM sublet, but the police have the city PD has the ability to move those out, and they've started doing targeted runs with the sheriff's office for right by the sign. We're just a little bit south on the road to the left of the sign, and so we have some folks out there as well. But right by the sign, that's actually a city leased property, and we've given them
on the east side of the highway?
Correct.
Okay.
I think it was just last week I saw four sheriff's vehicles in that area together working on the issue.
Good. I received a letter from a firefighter in Lake Havasu City complaining, and it was a letter to, I think, every elected official, city, county, state, and federal, complaining about the appearance of that kind of stuff. So I'd like to see that addressed. Any other questions? Well, thanks for coming down and testifying. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having us, and we're always welcome to come back on any issue that you'd like to talk to us about. Thanks for having us today.
Sure, and if we can work together to cure this problem, it would be great.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jason. Mr. Chairman, I brought this forward. It's been quite a while ago. It was a different board when brought forward the reward system. But the board at that time decided they're going to go with this, we'll let them clean it up, which I obviously am dead set against. I think you're seeing from Mr. West and BLM, and from our monthly reports, we've already collected over 100 tons of trash this year. That's not working. The only people that are being punished are the decent people of Mojave County. We've taken $400,000 from them in additional fees to run our race program, to go out and do these cleanups. Then we have volunteers go out and clean it up, and the people, if they get caught, they're allowed to clean it up with no punishment. The punishment in the courts hasn't been very good. I believe Mr. West brought up some good points about our fine system, and maybe the attorney could tell us if we could make a minimum fine, of $500 or something, at least for the first offense, where they have you don't want to go too high, because some of the people dumping aren't probably the richest people in the world. But we have so many free trash days at different dumps, you know, Havasu has them. We have it at the county. We have, just like Mr. West was saying, we have large ones that could, large pieces of trash that can be picked up for free. Even the county goes out and does free cleanups every once in a while, but we've got to stop the people that are dumping all over our county. Like Havasu Mayor, she got a hold of me, said he would support whatever we do. He's willing to, like he told with Mr. West, that their law enforcement will work with them and go out with them, and that might help them on their 14 days when they have some, you know, they have very limited law enforcement people with BLM to cover the entire area. But I'd like to see us go back to the rewards and say, hey, there's no cleaning up. We will get you the first time we catch you, you know. I mean, that's, get the people given the rewards, because I think that'll stop it. Those are my ideas, I don't know.
So we do not have a bounty currently?
We have a bounty, but it's only if the guy refuses to clean it up. We've only paid one of them out the entire time.
And it's really not there's no incentive for them not to dump if the worst that's going to happen to them is have to clean up their mess.
That's right. So 1 time out of 10 you get caught. It was interesting when we first did it. It took a while to get the list of people that had to go out and clean it up. And while we might think they might be the poor people, they weren't the poor people. They were construction people. They were rental people. There was a lot of wealthy people that were out dumping stuff in the desert that we had caught and just made them clean it up. We have our public information officer. I would think, hey, have him put it out saying, hey, so and so was you know, convicted of dumping this trash, and you know, embarrassment always works, fines always work, and if you give a reward of $500, I think was what we have now. I mean, it's pretty good money nowadays with the way inflation's going.
Yeah, you could run the wall of shame in
Yes.
the local newspaper or on the website showing
Right.
the photographs of the people that had been convicted of dumping in the desert.
And it's pretty easy to figure out. I mean, if, you know, like out in Yucca or no matter where our areas are, if you see a guy with a pickup load of junk driving the wrong way from the dump, you know, I mean, you know he's dumping somewhere. So.
Sure. Supervisor Angus?
Supervisor Johnson, do you want to revisit the fine part here at the board?
Yeah, I think if we do that, and ask the county attorney, if we make it mandatory, let's say 500 just for talking, that's something we could do, and then we have to give, what, a 30-day notice?
Mr. Chair, Supervisor Johnson and Supervisor Angus, the current ordinance does not specify a fine. It only specifies it as a Class 1 misdemeanor, which then defers to state law for the fines. And so the question then is you're posing is, could the county write in its own ordinance minimums? And I think the county could, yes. Right now, the way it's written, kind of deferring to state law on the fines, it's up to the judge to then decide. And as was stated, as a Class 1 misdemeanor, the maximum fine is $2,500, but a judge certainly can order less than that. Another aspect that should be considered is the judge ordering restitution. In other words, paying for the cleanup and a fine on top of that. But those are things that could be communicated with the local judges to emphasize the importance of, and then certainly the judge will have discretion on how they choose to enforce it.
We could bring that back. Is it possible to get the board today, because it's just a policy that the board has on letting people clean up instead of giving the rewards out to the people? Because the problem is now, if you find somebody illegally dumping, but the county just lets them clean it up, you don't get the $500. We could change that policy today if we want, couldn't we?
Mr. Chair, Supervisor Johnson, yes, it would be rewriting the ordinance and going through that process. Right now, the fines, again, just deferring to state statute, it goes through the normal process for misdemeanor fines. In other words, the courts are going to get the money, and along those lines, I don't think the county in the erase program necessarily get that fine unless the county writes in its own ordinance ways to specify minimums and where that money would go outside of the normal Class 1 misdemeanor.
Right, what I'm saying is we have a reward system of $500 for the arrest and conviction of somebody, but we've been suspending that or not paying it if the person cleans it up and they don't go to court. But today we have, because that's just an internal policy, we could say we're not giving any more warnings out. And so if they get somebody, they still have to clean it up, we're prosecuting them, we give the reward. We can do that today probably.
And
It is a policy.
And Supervisor, Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Johnson, when you're asking about the policy, I think that probably goes to the department, and I'm not familiar with a policy to not make them pay, but certainly we can look into that, report back, but maybe the county, the appropriate departments can comment on policies and practices rather than just what the law is.
Well, this board made that policy before, so this board, we should be the one that could change it today, shouldn't we? I mean, we come back on the ordinance on the setting the fine, but if the board so wishes, I think we could do away with letting people clean it up. I mean, I would make a motion to suspend the allowing people to get out of prosecution by cleaning it up, and to make, let's see, make a motion to stop the allowing of people to clean up illegal dumping and not being prosecuted on a first offense. I guess that would be the motion. And that way then the reward would kick in on every one of them, because we have, I believe, 100 and some that have been, just in this last report that I see that we've allowed to clean up, where if people were getting a reward, I think it would stop immediately, you know. It would slow down.
Supervisor Lingenfelter.
Thank you, Chairman Gould. Appreciate Supervisor Johnson bringing this to the board. And it does sound like, I mean, if we're doing one thing and it's only getting worse, then we have to make some changes. So I would be in full support of either an ordinance or looking at policy, as you suggest, to bring back to this board the appropriate combination of not only carrots, but some sticks, right? So, thank you. I'd second your motion.
Chairman Gould, Supervisor Johnson, you could always add to set a public hearing to actually make changes to the existing ordinance at this time as well, I believe.
Well, I've got one motion out there, so I better see if I get a second on that one.
I'll go ahead and second your motion. You've heard that motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it. Do have it. So ordered.
Mr. Chairman, I guess I would make a motion to set a public hearing to change our county ordinance to have $500 minimum fine up to $250, up to $2,500.
I'll second that.
You've heard that motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it. Do have it. So ordered.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor. We're going to continue our out of order for one more item. We're going to go to 44. Supervisor Bishop's got to catch a plane. Supervisor Lingenfelter.
Thank you, Chairman Gould. I'm going to try to go in order here as the clerk's office and the attorney's office gave this to us. I think the first order is to make a motion for reconsideration of item 48 from the May 2nd, 22 Board of Supervisors meeting.
Second.
You've heard that motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it. Do have it. So ordered. Supervisor Lingenfelter.
Thank you, Chairman Gould. You know, I know we had this on our meeting last time, but I've had some additional conversations with some of the current users of the facility that we have now. And the more of these discussions I have, the more I tend to agree with Supervisor Johnson that I know that we've done a lot of good work from the county staff. We appreciate that, but I don't want to put the cart before the horse. We're going to, you know, do this. We need to do it right. And I think we're kind of getting the steps out of order with putting the land selection before we do a really thorough master planning, meeting with all the groups, listening to all of their plans. And I have a couple of folks here I'd like to bring down to testify, but really, these groups, the motorsports folks in the area, the equestrian, the rodeo folks, all the people, they've been a part of the history of the fairgrounds, and they need to be a part as far as like an ad hoc committee deciding the future of this facility for this county as well. So if it's okay, I'd like to invite up, I know we have Brian DeMaria, who's the president of the Kingsmen. Brian, you want to come down really quick and, just talk about what I'd really hope that this board would support is forming just an ad hoc committee that would have you, have the motorsports folks, have all the others that currently use the facility. I mean, I know you have some, in our discussions, some pretty big plans that the Kingsman has a plan for perhaps, through a series of public-private partnerships where you would help the county, to really make this new facility, wherever it ends up being, into something great, like an indoor arena. But I don't want to put words in your mouth. You just want to kind of talk about, the overnight stalls, all that stuff that you were talking about.
Yes, on the grounds where you guys want to move.
State your name, please.
My name is Brian DeMaria. I'm the president of the Kingsmen. The rodeo grounds that you guys are deciding, it's a good location, but the thing is, the acreage. Right now, me and Kristen were talking, putting an indoor arena and trying to have 4-H and all the other stuff there. We were looking at, I was telling her to go look at the Queen Creek Pavilion. The Queen Creek Pavilion is what she was looking at to see the design of that. That's just the arena alone is on 100 acres with the warm-up pen and everything. If you go and put stalls in, you want to put RV parking in for that, you want to put in a 4-H area, you're going to need at least 200 acres to really help out everybody around there. The Queen Creek Pavilion has 2 external arenas so they can have different events right along with just having your indoor arena. When we get the indoor arena done here in Mojave County, I'm able to get the GCPRA finals that used to go to the Avi to bring it to Kingman. I've already talked to Barrett there. They want to have it brought to Kingman because they've been traveling around and having it in different areas because the arena down there at the Avi, they can't have it because of COVID, because of the Indians. That's the way the Indians are. They said when COVID goes away, then they'll reopen their arena. But if we can get at least 200 acres just for all the events would be great.
Appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, you look at not just the rodeos, but we've got a number of livestock events,
Right.
Adult livestock events, the youth livestock events, the 4-H events. So I appreciate that. And that's just space for the events, not even the parking aspect.
Right,
So,
exactly. That's just the event area.
I appreciate it. If I could ask Brian from the Kingman Street Drags to come down really quick. Brian, you and I have also had some conversations about all the possibilities that Mojave County is missing out on when it comes to motorsports. We've got motocross, we've got the street drags that you guys do, we've got sand drags. Due to our proximity in Las Vegas, the possibility of practice racing for those big events. You want to just kind of talk about, some of the things that you see in the
Introduce
future?
myself. My name is Brian Devensenzi. I live here in Kingman. I've had numerous conversations over the last 22 years with some of the chairman. Myself, I've spoke to Ron Gould in the past. I've spoke to Travis Lingenfelter. I think I even spoke to Mr. Johnson previously about motorsports. Travis and I had a conversation yesterday. I think that I opened his eyes to a couple of things I think should be looked at. One of the first things I'm going to bring to your attention is location. Location is critical. Everybody knows that as far as any other business in this world, and it's the same thing for the fairgrounds. The fairgrounds is also a business. My feeling personally, if you locate the fairgrounds in the vicinity of where you're talking about right now, you do a disservice to this community. What I mean by that is the people coming from California or Las Vegas to use the facility do not need to use Kingman. If we look at wherever we relocate it, I'm trying not to sound too pro-Kingman. I don't mean it that way. I think this is a fantastic facility for Mojave County, and I think Mojave County is going to benefit from it. But where we put it is important. Your first requirement with a facility, and you're all looking at the problem right now, is water. That's going to be a huge issue wherever you put it. It's a major issue where it sits right now. I can tell you from the functioning of the fairgrounds, because I'm a promoter. Brian can tell you from promoting the rodeo. The water is an issue for all of us on our existing facility. Therefore, I think it's something that should be addressed before we go to a new facility. With that being said, I have a suggested area you should look at locating north of Kingman. Chairman Hill, I understand your feelings. I'm going to give you reasons why I say that. You could then tie this county and this facility to help part of the preservation of Route 66, a huge factor for this county. You're now located near the wastewater treatment plant, where you have water access that's not accessible anywhere else, and that's going to play into the situation for the water needs for the county and at the fairgrounds. I truly believe that. Any motorsports event that doesn't conduct itself on asphalt, any equestrian event that doesn't conduct itself on asphalt, which they don't do, any event period is going to require water to be used out there to retain the dust and to hold down the dust created by the event. It's going to be a major issue. The state has land out there on Route 66 I've had identified for over 10 years that's available. It's something the county could look at. I think it's at least worth the effort to pay attention where we're trying to put this before we do it. This is a major change you're making for the community. I think it's far overdue. I happen to be one promoter who put 2 major events on at the fairgrounds that then had ordinances put in place immediately after the event, so I could not conduct them again. I'm speaking specifically to the sand drags. We brought in 8 top fuel cars, the largest event ever held at Mojave County Fairgrounds. And the week after us, an ordinance was put in place that we could not do it again. We've got to get past these kind of things for this to be a successful facility. And I think you're doing the right thing to head that direction. I have a lot of things to say. I could spend most of your meeting here. You have much more important things to do. So if you have any questions, please.
Brian, I appreciate your thoughts and on location, but again, I think that the location is kind of comes after you do the master planning. Can you kind of talk and share with the board some of your conversations as to, I mean, the fact that you could have races every weekend, what we could do with maybe motocross, maybe what we could do with some of the racing at a new facility if it's large
to tie
enough.
Things together between Ryan and myself, the question on autosport, those aren't 2 type of things that like to coexist. So the facility needs to be thought out and put in a position and in place that these can exist. What he's referring to is the rodeo could have a rodeo going on the facility and need substantial parking beyond what their property would supply them. So there's going to have to be a central parking lot for the entire facility. But that facility, they're going to be using that parking lot. What's to say that there's not a motocross event going on the same weekend? As far as the motorsports portion of the fairgrounds, I think you'll find motocross is probably the most popular motorsports that would be conducted on the most weekends out of the year. You put that in conjunction with the rodeo going on, the facility needs to function in unison with each other. There has to be parking and substructures to handle both of these happening at the same time. And that's part of the discussion I have with Travis. The way the property is laid out, what you require each area to be concerned is you still need to keep a universal parking area for everyone. If you require, for instance, if you require the equestrians to supply their own parking, they're going to have events that are going to exceed that, and it needs somebody else's parking. If we don't have a universal parking system for all of the facilities, it's going to be a difficult time. And theoretically, we hope we get a situation where we can't handle the parking. That's a good thing.
Yeah. Appreciate it, Brian. So really what I would suggest to the board is, I know we made a preliminary decision on that BLM land, primarily just because of the cost aspect, but what I would really hope is perhaps this board would recommend in motion to create some sort of an ad hoc committee that would be facilitated by Parks. We would have everybody that's using the facility, the private users, the nonprofits that are using the facility, be a part of that ad hoc committee. You guys all master plan exactly, what uses you guys see in a new fairgrounds, how much property would be required from those uses. You guys master plan it, you bring back a final report to the board through Parks. And once you have that, then you can decide on a property to go forward with. So that's my hope.
Supervisor Angus.
When we were first considering building an animal shelter, we did just that. We put together a committee of all the stakeholders. It was a needs assessment committee, and it was very, very important and to what we ended up with, and it changed some of our viewpoints. So I think this is a very prudent thing to do. So I think we should have a needs assessment committee of stakeholders from the community.
Supervisor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What's a timeline you're thinking about on this? I know when I did Sarah Park, they did it in a matter of hours. I invited everybody that had a, interest in Sarah Park to show up, and of course there we had 1,100 acres. So then I said, here it is, figure out what you want, and they were able to do it. I think it's probably something that was a shorter time period where you said, hey, because it's more the people that are the vendors or the users. I mean, because there's a wide variety of people, just the buildings needed for expositions and all those things is going to be tremendous. What were you thinking?
Chairman Gould.
Supervisor Lingenfelter.
Yeah, I think it definitely should be time framed. And I think if you speak to a lot of these different groups, I mean, they've been doing it for years and years and years, because you guys know your wheelhouse. I mean, I know that I've seen master plans from the Kingsmen about big facilities. I've seen plans even like 10 years ago for drag strips and things like that. I mean, I think they could probably put something together in maybe 60 days, or I don't know what Park's schedule is, but if they bring back a report or a recommendation within 60 days or so, how does that sound?
Sounds more than enough time, I would believe.
So, I mean, if there's no other discussion.
Supervisor Angus.
Thank you, Chairman Gould. Just for clarification, who exactly is going to be on this committee? The people who are going to end up using it? Is it to talk about where to put it in Mojave County? Because I just want to make sure it's not just Kingman centric.
It needs to not just be just Kingman. I think that's another important factor for having some sort of a committee. Right. So I know from my district, and everybody else can talk about their district, but we have, in my district, we have the Kingsmen that do the rodeos. We've got the 4-H folks that do all the livestock events with the youth and the adults. We've got the cancer fair. So, maybe a few of the groups that would want to talk about the pavilion space or the event space. We've got Brian and perhaps a couple of your colleagues on the motorsports side. I know you guys have connections with like John Force and all those motocross, drag strip folks, and then whoever else you guys think.
And who decides ultimately who's on the committee?
I think this board does.
The board does?
Yeah, I think I don't know what the animal control process was, but I know that the Mojave County West Basin Water User Study Committee, where we decided about our water, that was at that state level. Cobb made sure that everybody that had an interest in water was kind of represented, at least somebody.
I think this is more involved than the animal shelter was, obviously. I think when we did the animal shelter, Yvonne was in charge of it naturally because she was in charge of the whole thing. I just think it's important to have a little bit more structure about exactly what you want from this needs assessment. Is it just, again, the events providers, or are we still looking around the county for space? Is that after we do this, after we figure, okay, got it, all right, thanks.
What we might want to do is use this committee to come up with the needs more than location.
Absolutely.
So we figure out how much land do we need to make this facility, right, with the people that can give us input on that. Then we start looking for a location when we know the size of the location. Right. I would just take the location out of the committee altogether.
Yeah, I would too. And really the thought process behind that is if you want somebody in on the landing, you got to be in on the takeoff. So my vision is that the county wouldn't just be solely responsible, wouldn't just be on our shoulders to build up some new facility. By partnering with these people early on, they're a part of the needs assessment. and deciding where it goes, then they're going to help us to build a facility through a series of public-private partnerships, bringing some private capital in to start building up a certain section of a new facility. But I think that, like you said, Chairman Gould, the physical location part comes after.
Sure.
So as far as a motion, I'm not sure, first I would just motion to create an ad hoc committee to talk about the needs assessment for a new fairgrounds, the uses of that facility, how many acres that they would need, just in a general sense for each one of those uses. I would like to have the current users in Mojave County that are using the facility. That would include the Kingsmen, somebody from motorsports, the 4-H folks, or somebody from 4-H that does the livestock events. I'd like somebody that is from the Kingman Cancer Fair and perhaps the Home and Garden Show. I know those are two big events that they have every year. And then also, I mean, we have to have representation from the other districts on that committee as well. And then bringing back a final report on the needs of a new facility and how big it needs to be back to the Board of Supervisors within 60 days.
Second.
And so somebody from the, thank you, somebody from the county will be on that committee too? I mean, just to...
I would say hopefully Kristen or Parks would facilitate that process.
Okay.
You might try to get the University of Arizona representative for the 4-H.
Yeah, I believe the U of A Cooperative Extension is involved as well. Is that clear enough? I tried to be specific.
I have one more technical question for
Supervisor Angus.
Tyler. Do we have to do anything with the last vote that we had on this? Do we have to take it back before we vote on this?
We already did.
Just to reconsider it means that it's dead in the water? Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
This is Supervisor Bishop.
Oh, you can proceed.
Thank you. I just wanted to drag it out to 60 days. But interesting that Queen Creek was brought up, and
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Lingenfelter.
Thank you, Chairman Gould. And again, I'll just reemphasize on that point. When it comes down to deciding a physical location in the future, I would ask the board not to forget that Mojave County does extend onto the opposite side of the Grand Canyon up to Utah, and we do actually have some communities up there that are Mojave County citizens as well. So we need to make sure that we don't forget them.
Sure. Supervisor Angus.
So do you think that the sheriff should be represented in the committee as well at this point?
Certainly not opposed to that from a security standpoint, sir.
I'm sorry.
I'm not opposed to that from a security standpoint, absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Health and safety.
I don't know if we need to tie the sheriffs up with it. I think we just need for everybody to come forward with all their ideas, because there's probably ones that we didn't think about, so while we have an ad hoc committee, like I did it before, I just said, if you're interested and you have a need, and the people showed up, I didn't get a lot of, looky-loos coming in to throw their 2 cents in, but we need to know the size, because then once we get that, then you got to get the price tag. So I mean, there might be a, mouthful of gimme, but not a whole lot of money in the pocket to pay for everything, so.
Thank you, Supervisor. Any further comments?
Mr. Chairman,
County Manager.
it would be great if we can get some guardrails, to use the transportation terminology, or some boundaries as to how many members on this committee and who's going to take the lead, who's going to bring them together to set the meeting, take minutes, and report to the board. I'm concerned with what we're leaving it now is that it's not going to have adequate focus and direction. Just speaking from my point of view and as just to ensure that the board gets back in 60 days what the board expects to get back in 60 days. We had intended to do this very same approach once we located a site that was acceptable to the board. Just so you know, the site that the board voted on contained approximately 375 acres. There were additional 250 acres west of that 160 that could be available. It's public land. We had intended to, once the application was complete, and it is tentatively complete as a draft, to sit down with the Bureau of Land Management, discuss with them the process and the time it takes to process a designated recreational and public land use versus one that is not designated, and we would ask for that designation. At some point, the plan was to conduct a master plan that identifies the functions, the exhibitions, the sports that would be, that the board would want to see, and the space needed for those. We're turning it around, and that's at the discretion of the board. We understand. We'll act on it as directed. My comment to you is then just let's make sure that we have enough direction from you regarding those items that I just mentioned. Number of individuals, groups, representatives that will be there, and then county role. I would hope the board would see the county in a lead role to bring this group together, not to dictate, obviously, but to listen, to take ideas, suggestions, comments, and ensure that we come back to the board in the time frame that you have identified. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Johnson.
I don't know if Supervisor Lingenfelter would consider maybe putting the county manager's assistant on that, kind of as an overseer, like Ms. Orr did before, and that way the county manager has more input into it.
Chairman Gould.
Supervisor Lingenfelter.
Manager Elters, are you comfortable with that? If I were to amend my motion to include your assistant?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Lingenfelter, absolutely. It's really not about anything other than to ensure that we deliberate and we bring you back the report and the information you expect. So yes, absolutely, I'd be fine with it. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, if I may add to my original motion.
To get in.
Second.
To place the assistant, the county manager's assistant in charge of that process. And then I'd also like to have that office contact each one of the district offices to see if there's anybody that they want to be on that committee.
Chairman.
Supervisor Bishop.
I'd like to make a recommendation that, like we did with the animal shelter, we have an appointed person from each district. That would make 5 members on the board plus the county manager's assistant.
Yeah, let's add that too, since it's a sausage factory of a motion anyway, so.
Do we need a renew second?
Yeah, I'll give my second. I don't know how large the committee's going to get, you know.
Getting bigger.
Getting bigger all the time. And unless you wanted to have the 5 of us hold meetings with, you know, the people in our area, because if you send out, what I was concerned about, if you say, okay, you guys look at putting somebody on, I guess we would need, or at least I would like to see, hey, I've got the motorsports guys and all that. And then, not that this cowboy here who wants to take all the land for himself, but, you know, we might have rodeo people in our area that would like to come up and they might say, hey, we need 300 acres instead of that. So, you know, I guess we're going to have, it's going to be a huge, huge gathering.
The other method, we might have a special meeting on the same day that we have a regular meeting, where you just advertise to the public that we're looking for input on a new county fairgrounds. Come on up and give us your input. And then you may look at those people as potential volunteers on the committee.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Mr. Gould, Mr. Chairman, one of the questions that Travis presented to me yesterday, his first question was, is 106 acres enough? I never answered you, did I, Travis? I wasn't about what acreage the motorsports needed. I was trying to discuss what the facility needs for everyone, be it the equestrian, be it the home and garden show, be it a motorsports. All events require some of the same things. That's what I was trying to look after.
Sure, and I didn't mean to imply that you weren't.
I understand.
But I think the more input is probably better than less input.
All I was referring to is, I'm not going to sit down and tell you I need this many acres to build this many tracks. I want a facility.
Sure.
Then we'll go from there.
Thank you.
Chairman Gould.
Supervisor Lingenfelter.
The fact that I suggested 60 days, and this might be more of an in-depth process and a bigger process than we all thought, but you know, I don't think we want to minimize this. The current facility, I mean, it's been there for what, like 70 years or close to 70 years. So it's kind of a big deal. We don't want to be too hasty in the process.
One last thing, excuse me, Mr. Lingenfelter, I hate to interrupt. There's one last thing I didn't bring up.
Okay.
From the motorsports world, in Phoenix, Firebird Raceway, which is Wild Horse Pass now, is going to close in March of 23. It's done. One of 23 NHRA races just disappeared because they're closing. The freeway is going to put an off-ramp through the middle of the track. Me saying this is because we have an atmosphere that is ripe. I could tell you a wonderful story of how we have the opportunity to take over an NHRA facility. It's not realistic. But the environment in our state is riper than it ever has for a facility like you're trying to do. That's why I find this so important. Not just for motorsports, it's for all of it. Very important right now.
Sure. Thank you.
You know, I think I have a motion. We've got a committee. It's going to be run by the county manager's office and his assistant. They need to contact each one of the district offices to make sure that everybody has a chance to get somebody recommended. It sounds like each one of the district offices will have somebody on that committee. And hopefully we can pull together at least a first draft of a recommendation in 60 days. I mean, maybe we take that report and we have a special meeting and we put that out in the public on our webpage and we say, hey, let's have a charrette, sort of a public charrette, a feedback session. Do we need to modify this in any way? Because I do think that we need to involve the public in this process as much as we can. If it's a county fairgrounds, let's try to bring as many people in to have some input as we can.
I agree.
Mr. Chair,
Supervisor Johnson.
I think Supervisor Lingenfelter brings up a good thing, but I don't know if we should do it sooner. I don't know if we're able to have our website or the public information office put up something where people could put in saying, what events have you seen at a county fair that you might, like to see? Because I'm sure all of us miss probably, half of them if we put it together ourselves. So maybe if people just sent in some things that they'd seen at other places at work, because I know some of them have the BMX racing, which at Sarah is a big thing, a lot of people there. So if you get the land and you have the space available, they have, I think, the motocross over there in San Bernardino. That place is busy all the time in that county park. I mean, every day they have things there. So I don't know if that'd be something that you'd want to do, get people just to send in things that we may have never heard of.
Yeah, Chairman Gould, if I may. I think something that this ad hoc committee could do is absolutely some sort of a public survey through the PIO's office to have people send in their ideas or their comments. I mean, that's on the table.
Mr. Chairman,
Manager.
just a clarification, from Mr. Supervisor Lingenfelter, in the motion, just the last revision, I thought I heard you say one representative for each of the 5 districts, and then one appointed from each district, or is your intent to just have one person, like one person or one representative from the district, and then have the district supervisor appoint somebody from the public that has a specific interest? I just want to make sure we understand the content of the motion so we can carry it forward.
Chairman Gould.
Supervisor Lingenfelter.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. So I've identified the groups that actually use the facility now. I think that each one of the districts should have that opportunity to identify similar groups in their district that might use a facility, a larger facility. And then I believe if I heard Supervisor Bishop correctly, she requested that each one of the districts have some sort of a representative. So those were different. So a conversation with each one of the district supervisors to identify any providers such as I have for District 1 that may be interested. And then to try to incorporate Supervisor Bishop's recommendation, somebody from their supervisor's office.
Thank you. Further discussion? Hearing none, you've heard that motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it, do have it, so ordered. Call to the public. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you for your time.
Scotty wanted to.
Tanya Dowsend.
Good morning, Tanya Dowson, Mojave County taxpayer. Our county was founded on self-evident truth that all men are created equal and that they are endowed with certain unalienable rights like life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The Constitution also recognizes property among these rights, and that for the purpose of securing these rights, governments are instituted among people, not kings and rulers, just ordinary people who get their power from the consent of the governed. Paying taxes to secure our rights to life, liberty, and property is justifiable because if we don't secure those things, we'll likely lose them. Today, the federal government is using our tax money for programs like compulsory charity that redistributes our hard-earned money to people who didn't earn it. Some of these programs are federal grant programs that have strings attached. Strings means requirements that force us to trade some of our freedom in a way that gives the government more power, just so we can have access to the money that we've already paid. For this reason, I don't pay my taxes voluntarily. I pay my taxes only because I know that if I don't pay them, bad things will happen to me in the form of fines, property confiscation, or even people showing up with guns to take me to jail. This is largely how the government collects taxes. It's through the threat of violence against peaceful people. The people have a right to know exactly how their money is being spent and exactly what strings that are attached to the grant money. They have a right to know what those strings will do to them. These strings must be spelled out in the board packet, and the contracts must also be included in the board packet so we can see exactly what you're doing to us. We also need to know what you're being taught in your classes, because it appears bureaucrats are teaching you ways to skirt the limits of the Constitution. When it comes to spending our money in ways that reduce our freedom, don't we have a right to know? Don't taxpayers deserve transparency? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Scotty McClure.
Is this call to the public?
It is.
What happened when I signed up for 44?
44 is an agenda item, then you get to speak on the 44 is an agenda item that you'll get to speak on.
I signed up for it.
Oh, we did. I'm sorry.
Yes, I did. So let's talk about that.
Sure.
Getting another 3 minutes after this. The reason I came up today was, besides I have some other things at the courthouse to do, is Denise Burley, this was in my Sunday paper, resigning. I don't think you guys treated her fairly. You made a law, about free speech and all this, and she was called names after name after name, and none of you did anything about it. You sat on your fat asses and let her, I do know her name, but you didn't protect one of your employees. And you're lucky she's given you until August to find somebody else. If that was me, I would have just out of here. The way you treated her was something else. And this person, one of the people that were calling her names, I think she got her free speech diploma from Berkeley, California. That will really set her off. Denise, thank you for doing your job. You did a great job, as far as I'm concerned. I'm reading a dollar bill here. This note is legal tender for all debts, public and private. I have a storage unit down in Fort Mojave. Apparently in July, they're going to up the rent, which they just paid $7 million for the storage units down there. $7 million. Except Colorado, yeah, it's worth it. It's where all the boats are. In July, apparently, I'm going to have to give them my bank account so they can take money out of my bank account. They're from Tennessee. And they're going to be making me, or else they're going to sell my stuff, because they are not getting in my bank account. And you guys need to make a law that I can spend $1 there. Right now, they're making me buy a money order. That's a rent raise, $1.50 buying a money order. I can't pay them cash anymore. They're not getting into my bank account. That ought to be illegal. I don't know what he's going to say. I'd like to hear. But, yeah, they just sell it at auction. This Martin Swanee sign that's on here, number 22, if you move this to Trump or anywhere, he's no longer going to pay you that money. I don't know what he gets because you won't tell us. It's on the freeway, so that's good advertisement. So, that was on the other thing. Yeah. I'd like to address number 44.
Sure.
I mean, I didn't even know, this wasn't even on the agenda when I got it Thursday. And that's what I wrote down just sitting here. You're fixing something that ain't broke. You ought to include Fran DePie on there. She rents the place 12 to 13 times, more than anybody else. She rents at least one of those rooms down there. She was not allowed on the other board that you had. And on this committee you guys are going to do, as long as not one person from there on that board that was on that board should be allowed to say anything on that committee. They should not be allowed on the committee. I asked you for an audit, and that's a joke. Oh, why can't we have 3 different places? Motocross out there, BMX. Our BMX track in Bullhead's doing great. What an improvement that guy's done. It's great. So it doesn't have to be all on this one fairground. Fix the fairground up for the people at FHA and stuff that want to be here. You could even put the morgue on that end by the freeway. The clientele don't care if they're hearing the trucks going by or not. But it just seems like this 60 days, you're going to make up the mind. It was supposed to be several years, and Mr. Johnson made a thing here. Let's plan this, plan this, plan this, plan this. 60 days ain't a plan. We need 5 years. You were right. The state tract land, it's 640 acres, a section of land. I don't know, I think you ought to have this fixed up here and put the BMX out there. I didn't know that place was out there, or out there. How about both? Go ahead, submit your plans. And yes, it's going to take 3 years. You're supposed to do a 5-year plan here, not a 60-day committee. Why should 5 people decide on a committee? You're not appointing enough people. You're not giving us enough time to respond to this.
Thank you, sir. I apparently overlooked 2 other people that wanted to testify in item 44. If they're still here, Martha Jane Reichert, come on down, ma'am. Sorry that I overlooked you.
Can I throw something next time?
No.
Okay.
My concern is with the fairgrounds. When I moved here, I was shocked to see how few restrooms you had. So my question is, do you have a sewer system planned for the fairgrounds, wherever you decide to go, which is going to require water more than anything? And that was another question I had, is where were you going to get the water for the 100 acres fairground? But it sounds like that's going to be changed or possibly looked at further. But those are my 2 questions, is how do you get water for just 100 acres? And where are you going to, or how are you going to do your sewer system that is necessary for the amount of people that attend the fairgrounds? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And Doreen Soltis. Is Doreen still here? Apparently not. Nan Nicole.
Well, I was going to say good morning, but it's almost afternoon. Wow. Anyway, my name is Nan Nickel. I'm from Fort Mojave. And good morning, supervisors, other officials, and members of the audience. I'm here today to talk about Agenda 21, including community development block grants, which our county approves. Sustainability sounds very comforting and prudent, doesn't it? So let us venture forward into what this word means when it comes to community development block grants in Agenda 21 2030. Sustainable in the view of community planners is predicated in part by the affirmatively furthering fair housing, which enables the federal government to control local zone and land use, overturn voters' decisions, and force communities to join a region. Source of this information is AFFH in 5 minutes video, which is located on Mojave County Patriots website, and that's lowercase, MojaveCountyPatriots.com. Please check it out. It's very important you understand what's going on here. Maybe some of you do, but I don't believe all of you do. Agenda 21-2030, how does it affect you? It promotes mandated civilian national service for youth, implements lifelong education on sustainability, controls the size of your family, and cutting the amount of goods and services you buy and use. Private ownership of anything is also a target, as Agenda 21 promotes elimination of private ownership, denies access to wildlands, mandates government control of fishery and farm harvest, and equal rights for all living and non-living objects, which include humans, animals, plants, rocks, and rivers. So therefore, we're all equal, aren't we? Including with rocks and rivers. Love that. Free markets also would be changed to having the government set prices on goods, control all business, increase tax on gasoline, and a fundamental change in our economy. Global reset sound familiar? How about the waters of the United States, where just about everything with water or used to have water is regulated? There is not enough time to go over the edicts, rules, penalties, lack of freedom to live our lives as we choose that has slipped into our system by signing on to money from the U.S. government subject to rules of agencies which have no constitutional authority to do any of these things, and which we, the people, have a weaker position with. We have constitutional rights with our Congress, we don't with the agencies. So back to the CDBGs we go. Any of this type of money we approve will lead us down the path to becoming part of a region. We won't have a county, we won't have county supervisors. We'll have unelected bureaucrats that we can talk with. Anyway, I gave you Agenda 21 booklets, all the supervisors. It's, the information is from about 2013. There's a lot of updates to it, but it really covered, if you really read that and understand it, and I hope you will, and perhaps you already have, I don't know, it is really important for all of us, and all the citizens should know. So I also today, if anyone wants to see me during the break, I have some handouts for the public if they wish to have one. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Proclamation acknowledging the 53rd Annual Professional County Clerk of the Board Week in Mojave County, Arizona. Do I need a second? Read the proclamation? No.
Did you make a motion to approve, Chairman Gould?
No, I did not. Motion to approve.
I'll second that.
You've heard that motion. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it. Do have it, so ordered. Public hearing. We're on item 37.
Consent agenda?
Public hearing. I'm going to open the public hearing on item 37. Anyone here? Sheesh.
It's been a long morning.
A creature of habit. Okay. Consent agenda. Supervisor Angus, do you have anything you'd like to remove?
Well, I think that people have already signed up for several of them, so I'll let you remove them.
Okay. Supervisor Johnson?
Nothing, Mr. Chair.
Pardon me?
Nothing.
Nothing. Supervisor Langenfelter?
Chairman Gould, item 22.
22. Supervisor Bishop?
I have nothing.
Nothing. And I had one. Let's see, number 8. Number 7. 13. 20. And 33.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the consent minus items 7, 8, 13, 20, 22, and 33.
Second.
You've heard that motion? Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it, do have it, so ordered. Number 7. Let's see. That's probably Mr. Smith. It is Mr. Smith. Thank you, sir.
Good morning, Chairman Gould, members of the board.
Want to give us a brief overview of what number 7 is about?
Sure, no problem. So number 7 is our Clio, and we do this every year with the board. So basically, we take our MOU and our bylaws, and we present this to the board as how we will conduct business between the Mojave County Workforce Development Board and the Board of Supervisors.
Questions for Mr. Smith? I have one request to speak. Tanya Dowson.
Good morning, Tanya Dowson, Mojave County taxpayer. The Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act is designed to help job seekers access employment, education, training, and support services to succeed in the labor market and to match employers with skilled workers they need to compete in the global economy. Apparently, there's a partnership agreement between the chief local elected officials for a very expensive Mojave La Paz Workforce Development Area and Mojave La Paz Local Workforce Development Board as required by some Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act from 2014. It seems the state of Arizona, through this very expensive Mojave La Paz Local Workforce Development Board, is essentially creating a California-style regional governments board of unelected bureaucrats that skirt our U.S. Constitution in order to spend our tax money without any accountability to the taxpayers. Why have you made giving job seekers access to employment, education, training, and support services my responsibility? Why am I having to pay for that? Helping job seekers is charity. Forcing taxpayers to pay for this compulsory charity is wealth redistribution. According to the 5th and 14th Amendments, no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. For the record, my money is my property, and spending my money on compulsory charity is public use. Since there has been no due process, I should receive just compensation for the money that's been extracted from me for this charity. Is it okay with you that the taxes that are collected through the threat of violence against peaceful people are given to people who didn't earn it? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. What's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve.
Second.
You've heard that motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it, do have it, so ordered. Item 8, Mr. Smith, a brief overview of what's going on here.
Yes, Chairman Gould, Board of Supervisors. In the backup information, we just updated a little bit of information that was required, and that was just the firewalls with the program. So basically, Mojave County runs the whole entire program when it comes to the Workforce Innovative Act. So we have our program, and then we have myself, the director, and then you have the Workforce Development Board. This all goes together so that there's no crossover, so that nobody's directing one organization or one group to do something on behalf of that organization. It's just a conflict of interest to keep everybody on the same page, the MOU.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Any questions for Mr. Smith? Hearing none, what's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve.
Second.
You've heard that motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it, do have it, so ordered. Item 13, Tara.
Good morning.
Can you give us a brief overview of what's going on here?
I mean, I can give you a quick overview, but this is using a cooperative contract. Public Works is going through a systemic process to update some of the community parks. This is updating playground equipment at the community park that is Davis Camp Park.
Questions for Tara? Hearing none. Thank you, Mel. Tanya Downson.
Good morning, Tanya Dawson, Mojave County taxpayer. Some might say, who could say no to children and playground equipment? You know, come on, it's for the children. But people in Mojave County are struggling now more than ever, thanks to the Biden administration, to put gas in their cars and to go to work and to put food on their tables. Prices of everything have been skyrocketing. And the county is spending almost $80,000 on playground equipment for a park. I mean, is it plated in gold or something? It's just, that seems like a lot of money for playground equipment. It comes across as tone deaf in these times when everybody's struggling to pay their bills. Really, parks should be supported on a voluntary basis. And apparently this money is coming from people, the tourists that pay the park fees or what have you. I'm not exactly sure. But seriously, if the government has excess money to spend, why doesn't that money go back to the people? It should really go back to the people because, well, it should always go back to the people. Even though times are hard now, it should still always go when times are good. Excess money should go back to the people. Thank you.
Can I ask the speaker a question? Tanya, so do you believe that the county shouldn't have any parks?
I believe parks should be on a voluntary basis. If people want to get together and buy property and build a park, that's great. But I don't think money should be extracted from people by force through the threat of violence to be paying for.
Okay, but the park fees, people are choosing to go into the park and pay the fees. It is by choice.
Okay, so that's what I was saying. If it's paid for by choice, that's fine. But the money, the excess money is county money because it's county property. So
but only to be used in the park.
Yeah, but the excess,
only to be used in the park, given by people visiting the park. I just wanted to make sure that
but it's excess money that the county has that it should go back to the people.
Okay.
Thank you.
I don't believe that state statute allows us to spend that money someplace else.
Even though it's
Mr. Latosky might have an answer for us. Let's ask Mr. Latosky, the Public Works Director. But I believe I am correct.
Good morning, Chairman Gould, members of the board. The Parks Division, by means of collecting these fees for user entry into a Davis camp, is a reinvestment into the facilities, in this case, a decades-old playground equipment. The status of the industry is such that that's what these playground equipment, that's their cost these days. But to answer your question, Chairman Gould, specifically, we have two things at play. One, parks being an enterprise fund, so we're reinvesting the fees back into the facilities. But two, our specific lease with the Bureau of Reclamation for Davis Camp actually speaks to the reinvestment of any fees collected at Davis Camp back into the park. So there's really two alternatives here. Maintain and provide for first-class facilities for all of our users, for all of our visitors, from the adults on to the kids, or actually reduce the fees. But we prefer the former because we have a robust visitorship at Davis Camp, attracting about 250,000 visitors annually, and they come for the first-class facilities that we aim to set out to provide, such as this.
Thank you, sir. Questions for Mr. Latosky? Supervisor Lingenfelter.
Thank you, Chairman Gould. So again, these are monies that are just park fees. They're being reinvested into the park. And I know it was listed under procurement This equipment is obviously competitively sourced.
Yes.
So you're getting the best price out there for this type of equipment. You know, and I see this as, you know, anybody that has children or grandchildren, this is a quality of life issue. And in order to have a strong workforce, a robust area, you got to have quality of life things, or you're not going to be able to attract your workforce to keep this county moving forward. That's all I see.
We're on the verge of starting our summer season with Memorial Day weekend just around the corner. If any of you were to come to a Davis camp on any one of those summer weekends, there is a tremendous amount of families. It's really like a family tailgate, as I like to put it, just the beach crowded with. So the little ones will definitely take advantage of this first-class park. It provides for safety surfacing, a canopy, and a range of playground equipment.
Since it's an enterprise, I think that's what state statute limits the money from being taken out of that and put into some other program? Might be a question for the lawyers.
Might be a legal question for enterprise funds to be
Mr. Chair, speaking of funds, I have not looked at this exact enterprise fund for this park, but in general, any fees the government or county collects must be used for the purpose of that fee. The county can't collect a higher fee than necessary to then subsidize other county operations. They have to be used merely for the purpose for which the fee was collected.
Since we're not supposed to actually be running businesses.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. County Manager.
Would like to ask Cora Lloyd, our Financial Services Director, to come down and help answer that question as well. Thank you.
Good morning. I've got a case of laryngitis, so I'll speak very quickly. I affirm what the attorney's office reported, that the user fees are collected. They must be used specifically to reinvest in purposes of the parks program for the enterprise funds. There is an exception allowed by law on occasion. It is a legislative action when flexibility language is approved. Then the county Board of Supervisors may elect to do something else with a portion of those funds, but it's got a maximum amount. But overall, that's exactly right.
Questions for Ms. Lloyd? Hearing none. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
I would like to make a suggestion from what I've just heard. Then I think it would be fair that the price of admission to the parks would be reduced, use that money to reduce admission and maybe have a less expensive, I mean, $80,000 is a lot of money for a playground equipment. And I think maybe putting some of that money toward reducing fees so more people could go to the park and enjoy it, because these days finances are difficult and, you know, people may not be able to go to the park. So
Supervisor Lingenfelter.
Thank you, Chairman Gould. If I could have Latosky come up just once. Steve, can you, the speaker may not be aware of the annual pass program. Can you speak about that?
Absolutely. Thank you for that question, Supervisor Lingenfelter. Mojave County Parks has been steadfast in keeping at a very reasonable rate. An annual pass for any county resident at just $40 per year that entitles access to Wallapai Mountain Park as well as Davis Camp for day use.
And that's all year round, right?
That's a year-round pass.
And as far as the tourists, we'll take their money, right?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
still, I think looking at reducing the cost of admission would be a good idea. So thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Chairman Gould.
Supervisor Lingenfelter.
Motion to approve.
Second.
You've heard that motion in second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it, do have it, so ordered. Item 20. Terry, you want to give us an overview of what this item is?
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board. This is our routine monthly activity report. So this is me reporting to you, the board, any of the contracts that we have awarded, any activities that have happened within the procurement department throughout the month of March that you have delegated authority to me. I also use this opportunity to share any newsworthy things going on in our department, staff training, rebate programs, et cetera.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions for Tara? Hearing none. Thank you, ma'am. Tanya Dowson.
Good morning, Mojave County taxpayer. So we spent $33,240 to refurbish a 1987 privately owned 953 square foot mobile home that the county values at barely over $23,000. The money for this item appears to be the product of a taxpayer-funded HUD Community Development Grant block grant. Are you aware that affirmatively furthering fair housing works to hold HUD's community development block grants hostage to federal planning demands, thereby taking important planning decisions away from the people at the local level? If you accept community development block grants, you have essentially handed our local planning authority over to the federal government. Are you aware that Biden now endorses Cory Booker's strategy to get rid of single-family zoning? The strategy is to deny suburbs millions of dollars they're used to getting in HUD grants unless they eliminate single-family zoning and densify their business districts. As you know, AFFH forces HUD grant recipients to sign pledges to affirmatively further fair housing. Those pledges could get counties sued by civil rights groups or by the feds if they don't comply with HUD standards. We're already seeing HUD going after communities for non-compliance. One eye-opening example is Rockford, Illinois, where public officials had to reverse the local community's vote after HUD's compliance review. Stanley Kurtz warns suburbs will be pressured into a kind of de facto regional revenue redistribution, and they will even be forced to start building high-density, low-income housing. HUD is fully on board with redistribution. HUD's definition of equity states, quote, "Equity is about fairness. It ensures that each person gets what that person population needs. To achieve equity, policies and procedures may result in unequal distribution of resources, but will lead to equitable outcomes for everyone." End quote. That's no different from Karl Marx, from each according to his ability to each according to his needs. It appears that those in need have become a kind of protected class, and taxpayers are being forced to support them. The Biden administration and HUD are actively transforming our country into a third world regions by putting the whims of the collective over the inherent and inalienable rights of the individual. So, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. What's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve.
Second.
You've heard that motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it. Do have it, so ordered. 22.
Chairman Gould.
Supervisor Lingenfelter.
Yeah, I asked for this to be pulled. This has to do with a big sign at the fairgrounds right now, and I pulled it because it just looks like it's kind of a sweetheart deal. I mean, I added a couple of pages to the backup where you see how many different agencies they do RFPs for naming and sponsorship rights agreements. I don't understand why we're just giving the opportunity to Martin Swanee. You know, I think that rather than just continuing a current deal, that we need to, as a county, put out an RFP or have a program where everybody has an opportunity to participate in naming and sponsorship rights at county facilities.
Mr. Chairman.
Letoski. Supervisor Johnson.
I agree with Supervisor Lingenfelter, although I think that possibly at least let it finish out the year might be, we're kind of stuck in the middle of something, but part that does concern me is why are we in May now and we're just now finding out that this contract hasn't been paid for 4 months.
What?
Mr. Letoski.
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, staff has been aware and have been working with Swanee on a new agreement, which is before the board under item number 22. To provide some perspective, Swanee has struck an agreement with the Fair Association back in 2019. It was designed to be a 5-year agreement for the attachment of the electronic lighted sign to the Fairgrounds arena. And when we approached Swanee with regard to the agreement being null and void with the Fairgrounds Association having their lease terminated, it was discussed the prospect of bringing to the board a new agreement for the county to see out the remainder of the 5-year original intended lease. What that would offer the fairgrounds would be $1,750 per month that would be retroactive to the January 2022 payment. So we would see a full 12 months of $750 per month, as well as $2,000 per month in all of 2023, with the agreement as presented here terminating at the end of next year. Staff would have a complete interest in doing an RFP for proposals for new naming of the Fairgrounds Arena, if that was the board's pleasure. So we kind of saw this as more of a stopgap, recognizing the spirit of the original agreement, but at this point it is the board's pleasure as to whether or not to entertain. We would need certainly a few more months yet to go a different direction with an RFP, and then we would lose the opportunity for the $1,750 per month revenue dating back to January.
Questions for Mr. Letoski? Supervisor Lingenfelter.
So if a motion was made to have an RFP out and evaluated and awarded prior to the end of the calendar year, as Supervisor Johnson had mentioned, that would be acceptable?
Yes, this agreement that's before the board today would take it all the way through the end of 2023. But I believe there is a termination clause if the board were to entertain an earlier date.
Yeah, I would like to see, and after the discussion, I'll put up a motion that we take this current agreement with them to the end of the current calendar year and provide everybody in the county an opportunity to participate in naming rights and sponsorships at our county facility. To my knowledge, it only looks like Martin Swanee was given the opportunity to provide this exposure off of Interstate 40, and I don't think that that's very fair.
Second.
You've heard that motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it. Do have it. So ordered. Number 33. Mr. Elters, can you give us a brief overview of what's going on here?
Mr. Chairman, board members, one of our county buildings that was donated to the county years ago was authorized by the Board of Supervisors in prior years to be used by the University of Arizona Corporative Extension. They do have a kitchen in that facility. They wish to upgrade it and turn it into a commercial for educational purposes. They have the funding for it. They don't have the means and the resources to oversee a construction contract. So they approached the county with the understanding that they will pay for the upgrade, understanding it's a county building and they need authorization. They've asked the county to oversee that improvement and to pay us to oversee the improvement, similar to what we pay ourselves to provide similar services. So it is in front of you for approval for those terms and conditions.
So the 5% that's in there, that's enough to cover the cost of the county administering that contract?
Mr. Chairman, board members, yes, that is what we experience on other facilities similar to it. That's what we charge, and this is consistent with that.
Thank you, sir. Questions for the county manager? Hearing none. Tanya Downson.
Good morning, Tanya Dawson, Mojave County taxpayer. And just a little insight into who these people are. The Cooperative Extension website links to a page titled How to Be Engaged with Your Local Government on Sustainable Development. The page goes on to say, while individuals may make conscious lifestyle choices that promote sustainability, such as eating locally grown food or driving a hybrid vehicle, the responsibility of, quote, the greatest good for the greatest number, unquote, often rests squarely in the hands of local government. This is a perfect example of Marxist United Nations Agenda 21, Agenda 2030 propaganda infecting our institutions. Our government is not responsible for the greatest good of the greatest number of people. Our government's sole responsibility is to equally protect the right to life, liberty, and property of each individual American. Government force is the only way for protecting individual liberty. For example, my right to live in the country, drive a truck, and eat what I choose. Government force was never meant to be used to impose the left's regressive values on everyone else. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. County manager, we're acting as the landlord for this group, aren't we? That's essentially what this boils down to.
Mr. Chairman, board members, yes, indeed, that is what we're doing.
Thank you. What's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve.
Second.
You've heard that motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. You guys appear to have it. Do have it. So ordered.
Chairman Gould, can we take a 5-minute break?
Sure. We're going to take a 5-minute break. Okay. Yeah.
That's how it's in California, but that's the problem. They see this stuff and blaze over, but it's too technical.
Call the meeting back to order. With that objection, the board will approve a proclamation acknowledging, did we already do that? Okay. That's the last time I let people change my agenda around.
Now we're on 37.
That was why I even cared about making the motion. Okay. The confused chairman will now move along to item 37. Mr. Smith. Oh, this is an open hearing. I'm going to open the public hearing on item 37. Anyone here to testify on item 37? Tanya Downson. Item 37.
There were some materials for the attorney, backup materials, and there was also a brochure for each of you on the AFFH. So hopefully you get those. They were given, I believe, to Jeannie Anderson. So anyway, Tanya Dowson, Mojave County taxpayer, good morning. I understand you're afraid that if you don't take HUD community development block grants, you might be forced to raise taxes. And you might be called a bigot for failing to go along with HUD's affirmatively fair housing, extensive racial and ethnic housing quotas. But land use and zoning laws are supposed to be controlled by our community and our local elected representatives who see to it that laws are constitutional and reflect our wishes. As Americans, we have a right to influence much of where and how we live, the value of our homes, and what it'll cost to keep them. HUD's affirmatively furthering fair housing rule changes that. HUD's power to withhold federal funding to any states and local governments that do not comply with its requirements to affirmatively further fair housing now gives HUD immense leverage over our local housing and community development standards. HUD's rule states that it doesn't impose any land use or zoning laws on any government, but paragraphs later, the same rule says HUD will assist recipients to adjust their land use and zoning laws to meet their obligation to affirmatively further fair housing. So while HUD doesn't directly impose new zoning laws, if you take grant money, they obligate you to impose their standards on your constituents. Those conditions are the strings that we talk about. The legal obligation is in the form of a statement that grant applicants must sign that says, quote, your jurisdiction agrees to take no action materially inconsistent with its obligation to affirmatively further fair housing. According to legal analysts, this statement establishes the basis for False Claims Act lawsuits by Department of Justice or private individuals. Because the funds are tied to our local planning process, the affirmatively further fair housing rule is essentially federal enforcement of the United Nations Sustainable Development and Smart Growth agendas at the local level. The United Nations Sustainable Development motto is think global, act local, and that's exactly what they're doing. So don't get stuck into the same regional government trap that California did. Sustainable development and smart growth aim to nudge us all into high-density, walkable housing projects near transportation and business hubs. So anyway, I'm sorry, that's about all I have.
Thank you, ma'am.
Chairman Gould.
Supervisor Angus.
Mike, can you come up here for a sec? Oh, it's a public hearing. I'm sorry.
Good point. Anyone else care to testify on item 37? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. Supervisor Angus.
Mike, would you please come up here? How many years has the HUD program been going on?
Chairman Gould, Supervisor Angus.
Well, I mean the CDBG, the block grant.
So the CDBG, I can say, I can't put my thumb on it.
I think it's from the 60s, actually. It's been a very long time.
It's a long time.
In all your years, because you were in Chicago and then here, has the government ever came to the local jurisdiction and did anything, made them do anything because they took this money?
Chairman Gould, Supervisor Angus, in the city of Chicago while I was there, or Lake County, Illinois, that was never the case when we applied for these loans or accessed these loans. With the county as well, I've never heard of anything being applied or negatively applied. I would add, the CDBG actually serves a great role within the community, allowing within the county, the supervisors to identify different projects with the community and then work hand in hand to make a difference within the communities. So it does address the community needs as opposed to an individual's needs. And I would also say that the special projects that we talk about in this item here as well allow seniors and other people to live in their homes.
My point is that all these contracts and all the problems that, and I understand where you're coming from, I do. But it's been going on for years. This is why it's important. Yes, it has. It's very important to elect people who see this when it comes. It hasn't come. You know, I'm not saying that down the road they're not going to say something, but we're here to deal with it as it goes. No. So Mike, if it ever got to a point where you got a call from the federal government and they said, hey, did you do this in your planning? Because it's not part of the planning. CDBG is not part of our planning. And it's probably the most community-driven grant that there is out there. I'm a big proponent of community development block grants. It's always done for good use. So I just want to let people know that if it ever came to the point where we were being dictated to by the federal government, it ain't going to happen. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Attorney Palmer, did you see anything in this contract where the federal government could come back in at a later date, having accepted this money, and make us change our zoning law?
Mr. Chair, I'm not aware of anything in this contract that would make the county do that. I would admit, though, that I have not read this contract. There was another attorney in my office who read this contract.
I was just concerned if Congress could then come back and say, since you took money in the past, we're going to make you do something different in the future.
Mr. Chair, there's certainly some protections against the government in general trying to override past contracts, right? We can't interfere with past contracts. You may remember one of the lawsuits at the state level regarding this interference with a contract being a constitutional violation. And I'm going back about 10, 15 years. I apologize if I can't name the exact contract, but I think it had to deal with pension benefits, something like that. But
thank you. Supervisor Johnson.
Mr. Chairman, I think where the confusion could be coming from, when we've done projects in the past, for example, the Golden Shores Senior Center needed air conditioning, all that. It was swamp cooler for all those years. So we used community development block grant funds for that. And we could have got by with an air conditioner, but because we're using federal monies, we had to redo the entryways, make more handicap accessibles, update bathrooms and all those things. So those things that make us do when we're doing something where we could have helped more people because all they wanted was an air conditioner, we had to upgrade the rest of the building to current standards, but nothing into the future have I ever seen.
But you knew that was going to happen when you took the money that you had to play the game.
That's right.
And I would think in normal law, you can't go back and change a contract, but all bets are off with the federal government because they seem to come back and change things ex post facto.
And may I say one thing?
Supervisor Angus.
And if it got to that point, we got the phone call. I mean, there would be recourse. And I agree, it is happening in California, but you have to remember they have very liberal elected boards. I have friends in San Diego who are fighting it, but they're being passed. It's not the federal government coming and saying you have to do it. The local boards are doing it because that is the way they see things. So I think we're very lucky here. So with that, I'm going to make a motion to approve.
There's no motion.
Oh, there's no motion.
Yeah.
Boy, I wanted to make this big statement and I blew it. Okay.
On to item 38. Mr. Smith. There, yeah, this is the one you want to comment on.
Any questions? Mr. Chairman Gould, members of the board, I'll address.
Give us a brief overview of what you're planning to do.
Sure. So what we're planning to do is we're doing, there's 3 projects here. We have the Hatch Valley put my glasses on. So we have the Hatch Valley for $65,000 for infrastructure improvement. We have the chloride for $70,000 water system infrastructure. Then the remaining balance will go to the Mojave County owner-occupied housing rehabilitation. And then we'll be applying for the SSP, which is the special program for housing as well.
Did we ever come up with an answer to those? You have a couple of projects and then you have the regular homeowner rehabilitation. Were the special projects coming out of the 1/5 where those projects were located, in which supervisory district?
Chairman Gould, I did provide that back up to the board as well a little while back after this last agenda item. But in regards to that question, the 2 supervisors that had projects allotted to them, they will not be a part of the rehabilitation program, and the other districts will, and that's overseen through the Mojave County Community Services Department, and I shared that with the board as well.
Thank you, sir.
Chairman Gould.
Questions for Mr. Smith?
Again, I think because this might have been your first go-around with CDBG, my district was not notified the way it usually is. And I had a little heartburn about that. So I hope that never happens again.
Chairman Gould, Supervisor Angus, I can promise you that will never happen again. We put a lot of different things in place in regards to our public notices, looking at all the different ways that we are communicating with the community in general, as well as working through the county IPO. So we'll definitely make sure that all that happens, and I apologize that took place.
Thank you.
Further questions for Mr. Smith? Hearing none, what's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve.
Second.
For that motion and second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it, do have it, so ordered. Item 39, Mr. Latosky.
Yes, Chairman Gould, members of the board, at their April 18th meeting, the board directed staff to review the park planning for the Toroweep area of Mojave County and bring back recommendations to the board. I personally took the lead on this, and just a little bit of perspective. Toroweep Road is a road that extends down from Mount Trumbull and Antelope Valley Road and maintained by Mojave County until it gets to the Grand Canyon National Park boundary. Inside Grand Canyon National Park, Toroweep Road is largely one of the main access roads into that portion of the Toroweep overlook, if you will. So I discussed the matter with Todd Saliga. Todd is the Toohey District Ranger, and Mr. Saliga does advise that National Park Service is, as part of their management plan, is indeed moving ahead with a pilot program to implement an entrance fee as well as a reservation system for access on Toroweep Road, where guests enter the Grand Canyon National Park boundary. So there will be no control on the Torrey Road section that Mojave County maintains, but just control and potential capacity, vehicle capacity limitations on the Torrey Road. And National Park Service is proposing some changes in signing as well as some new signing in advance of that access control to let approaching motorists know.
Questions for Mr. Latosky?
Mr. Chair?
Supervisor Johnson?
Are they going to do any limiting of access for people? They're going to put a cap on how many people go out there now, or?
Chairman Gould, Supervisor Johnson, yes, that's what I gleaned from this, that there'll be kind of a capacity-controlled reservation system. It's almost like what National Parks does for some hikers in some of the more prominent Arizona hiking areas. I think of that wave, for example, out on the eastern end of Arizona, where there's a substantial capacity control. It's almost like a lottery just to earn the privilege to hike that particular trail.
Can you go on to other areas from where they're going to be putting the reservation in at? I mean, like four-wheelers or people came in, can they drive through that and go to other areas?
I did not get into the specifics, Supervisor Johnson, in terms of the actual access. It is my understanding, though, that it is all of the public roads that is within the Grand Canyon National Park. Now, whether or not OHV riders could kind of steer clear of that and kind of take more native, unimproved areas, I suspect that might be possible. But I think the actual access control would be on the actual National Park Service proper roadways.
Thank you. I think that answered all the questions I had, and maybe we just keep an eye on this in case there is limited availability for our people to get on it. Thank you, Mr. Latosky.
Thank you. Moving on to item 40. Mr. Latosky.
Chairman Gould and members of the board, this has been a standing renewing agreement for kind of interagency service for National Park Service. Coincidentally, the annual agreement, which is for our maintenance of Torrey Road on the Grand Canyon National Park lands, has come to expire. And it was predicated originally, I think about 5 years ago or so, on National Parks' impact from some wildfires and also some monsoonal activities, which they just don't have any heavy equipment on in that area. And because we blade Torrey Road or have the equipment resources to do so, and the operators, and they came to us in the past, and we've always said, let's do an emergency equipment agreement so that we get properly compensated for our equipment and our operator. So the board has been approving this in previous years, and we just bring it back. Again, this would be used if and when National Park Service needs either a courtesy grading or, in the case of a storm incident, some additional assistance from us to open up the largely Torrey Road on the Grand Canyon National Park lands.
Questions for Mr. Latosky?
Chairman Gould. Chairman Gould.
Supervisor Lingenfelter.
Director Latosky, by looking at the verbiage, this is only extended through September of 22 for 4 months. What happens after that?
We would have to, Supervisor Lingenfelter, we would certainly have to look at then obtaining another extension. My guess is we're trying to stay within the boundary of the federal fiscal year. I do know our equipment rates will change as well because we run on the FEMA rates, so chances are we'll have to see those new postings in October. But I think we did this at the National Park Service's request, and I say I think we did this because National Parks has been fairly intent on making any requests for road maintenance in and around their fiscal year, their federal fiscal year.
So you anticipate there's going to be another agreement that aligns with the federal fiscal year of October 1?
Of 23, yes.
Through September
correct,
30th of 23?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Further questions for Director Latosky? Hearing none, what's the pleasure of the board?
Motion approved.
Second.
You've heard that motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Ayes appear to have it, do have it, so ordered. We've already done 41. 42. Supervisor Bishop still on the line? We've got some people here to testify. Beth Ferry?
Hi, my name is Beth Ferry, and I'm with Kingman Main Street, and this is Paul Gaines, and he's my partner in crime. We're coming before you to request permission to place some historic plaques, or place some plaques at 4 historic sites that are located in downtown Kingman. We are spearheading a downtown walking tour, and we are in partnership with Mr. Jim Hinckley, and we've been working closely with our city as well. And I have a sample in case you want to see what they'd look like, so you can see if it's something that, do you want me to bring it up there?
Sure.
Anybody search her?
I'm not sure about the procedure here. This is what they are, and they're made out of metal, but they'll be placed on a background plaque with a post, so that if anything is ever damaged, we're able to remove these and replace them. And I met with Mr. Finkbeiner, and we went around and secured some appropriate locations so that people would be able to view them from the sidewalk. And what we did find in sort of a soft opening, is this distance, people are able to pull up this QR code. So we, initially we thought, oh, it would be really great if we could put them on the buildings, but then they said, no, don't put them, we don't want them on the buildings. And then I realized, oh yeah, we don't want them on the buildings, but they'll be able to be close to the sidewalk, but in the graveled area, and then people can access them from like this distance. So it's really great. And so anyway, there's four of these that we're requesting: the county courthouse, the World War I statue, the territorial jail, and the St. John's Methodist Church are the 4 county buildings that are part of this tour. So we're just...
Chairman Gould.
Yes, here.
I'm saying.
You ready?
Chairman Gould.
Supervisor Lingenfelter.
Just one follow-up question. So when a tourist or somebody hits that QR code, if I'm not mistaken, isn't it Jim Hinckley that provides like an audio narration or some background on the facility, which is pretty neat?
Yes, absolutely. And he really, he's done such a beautiful job. I feel like we're coming right off some sort of road trip thing. He's got a great speaking voice, and he's worked in collaboration with the Mojave Museum to gather a lot of the research on all these buildings and whatnot. And so we're just really excited to have this come to fruition. There won't be any charge for people. They can do their walking tours any time of the day or night, and it's a way to move people from our visitor center into the downtown area. And along the way, we hope they visit shops and restaurants and things like this. But we think that they've done a really beautiful job, and Jim has been working with my media marketing, and it's turned out, I think, to look very professional. And anyway, we're requesting that be done.
Any cost to the county?
None. We're even installing it. With cement inside the ground. So yeah, no cost.
Chairman Gould, can we have her talk in the microphone?
Okay.
Because people can't hear her that are online.
Okay.
So no cost to the county?
No cost to the county.
Okay.
Chairman Gould.
Supervisor Lingenfelter.
As representing half of Kingman, I'd make a motion to approve.
Second. Mr. Chairman? Would it be a better idea to do like Havasu and put them in the middle of the sidewalk? Just a question.
Thank you, Supervisor. You've heard that motion. Any further discussion? You discussing or just fumbling with your mic?
I'm just fumbling.
Okay. You've heard that motion. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it. Do have it so ordered.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Oh, real quick, we have a unveiling on May 27th, and there will be a big block party downtown, and it is also National Road Trip Day.
It's the inaugural event of National Road Trip Day. Happens to be Kingman was chosen for that, so it's May 27th, a week from this Friday.
Outstanding.
Yep.
It's a week from the, oh.
Yes, it is. Chairman Gould. Thank you.
Thanks, folks. Supervisor Lingenfelter.
Paul, before you walk away, you gave the date. Is there a location and a time?
Yeah, the 4th and Andy Devine. That's the main kind of party central location. And then the statue of Jim Hinckley, which is the starting of the tours, is right in front of the railroad depot. There's a little plaza being built there with bricks you can have engraved and to raise money with and that kind of thing. So.
And for people that are interested in attending, what time does that start?
Sorry, from 3 to 10 p.m., 3 p.m. to 10 p.m.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Item 43. Alan Tempert. Good almost afternoon.
Almost good afternoon to you. You saved me for last. Got it. Good afternoon, everybody. And oh, Jenny, congratulations. You're the best. Proclamation. I totally believe that. So, all right. I wanted to discuss, and thank you, Chairman Johnson, for bringing us up to be able to talk about it on August 22nd. I and some of the other staff members were at an exercise in Phoenix called a TTX, which is tabletop exercise. Okay. Now, before I get into, my experience, and, it won't be really super deep. It'll be kind of, like a big picture type of thing. I want to read to you what the exercise, what they wrote up about it, as in the Secretary of State's office. The Secretary describes it pretty well. And then I'll get a little detail. This is an exercise for decision makers in elections, recorders, IT, and communications for all the 15 Arizona counties, along with a representative from each Board of Supervisors. Joining us are election security experts from across the country and our federal security partners. You have been invited here because you make a difference in elections. Thank you for your participation today and for what you do every day. And it says, what is a TTX? In this exercise, we will use our knowledge of election security to protect ourselves against simulated election incidences to help mitigate the damage caused by these incidences. You and the team around you will be making group decisions and will be taking notes. This is a no-fault environment with the emphasis on collaboration and communication. There are no mistakes, no losers, and no winners. Just participants that are both having fun and feeling the pressure. It is not a technical exercise, although we will discuss and deal with technology. Afterwards, we'll discuss how it went, how we protected ourselves, and how we could better protect ourselves in the future. Starts out, it was a one day, pretty much 6-7 hours for the day. And it started out with people from across the United States, as a matter of fact, being there, just to discuss what their kind of roles. I'm addressing this on behalf of our members that went from Mojave County, because it's elections. As you see the first words, it's elections. And everybody else are key players in what this big thing is of elections. I'm a key player, as the elections director. The recorder's a key player. The law enforcement are key players, instructional technology, and the public PIO, Roger. Okay, we had a few representatives there. It's just showing, really, basically what it shows is, you're not in there alone. We're all in this thing together, and this is probably what could have kind of happened. Okay, they did the same exercise in 2021, and it was very good then, and it was very good this time. One might say it's an award-winning exercise they did, because it is an award-winning exercise. In 2021, after they did 2021 going to 2019, 2019 going into 2020, it was put up for an award either through the Election Center and won an award, or the National Secretary of State's Association. So one of those two associations, so they did a pretty darn good job on it. People in attendance were some of the big hitters from the Secretary of State's office, including the Secretary of State. She said her words. We had people from CISA, Security Information Systems Administration, people from our local ones, from the national ones, from cybersecurity, people from Homeland Security, Arizona Homeland Security, Department of Homeland Security on the federal level. We had people from the FBI there. They just basically wanted to let us know who they were and what they do. And really, these people aren't new to us. I've been around for quite a while now, as you all know that. I've let you know that because we're so cool, right? But, you know, we had a lot of newbies. We got like 5 new elections directors and recorders and stuff since this last 2020 thing, right? So a lot of this is new and probably scaring the living daylights out of some of them. But basically speaking, these people want to let us know that they're just a phone call away, okay? That's great, but not on election day. Okay, you can be a phone call away. I'm calling Washington, D.C. what's going on, right? The FBI is not going to come in with a SWAT team. Well, they might, okay? So what was rather cool was they put us through 2 exercises, very similar to what we did a couple of years ago, but simulated. Okay, first of all, this group of people talk for about the first 2.5 hours. This is who we are. Yeah, we'll see you later. Life is great, and I agree with they're good. And I want to let you know this is just not a first time for us, guys. We've been on. Nathan from IT department or somebody from his staff go to monthly meetings with the cybersecurity end of it, like on Zoom meetings. I attend most of them too. There's also an election technology group that they have out. He attends it. There's Roger. I'm saying going to, he's on the Zoom meetings. They do this every month. A group for public information. Okay, so it's not new. It's been going on for at least well over a year on the public information, and some of the other ones for every bit of since 2019 on. So this is how it was laid out. They put us all into groups. They give us jobs that we're not. I wasn't the elections director. I was actually assigned to be the PIO guy for my group. I worked with other people from other elections directors and other people that were PIOs and people that were IT people and law enforcement, where we're all sat around tables. They put us around tables. And then we had scenarios that kept coming up. The first one was 6 months leading into the election. We had 1 hour to solve problems. Okay? They gave us a limited amount of funds. We had to buy this stuff. We had a moderator at our table. It was pretty cool. And we had to buy funds. We had to buy this. We had to buy this. Everything's not about cybersecurity. Okay? I learned a big thing about, cybersecurity is important. But the biggest part of it is, my gosh, everything we did, we called law enforcement after eventually. So for the first 6 months that we did in an hour, okay, it was anything from people spreading false rumors and bad information and things, how we would deal with things like that. We went to lunch, we came back, and then we had an hour of election day. So we lived an election day in an hour. We lived a 24-hour day in 1 hour. Pretty wild, okay? So we had to deal with ourselves working as a team and see how we would resolve these problems. And it really came down to this. It came down to you can never prepare for everything. It's not possible, but it put things in your head what could happen. I'll tell you, I'm going to tell you everything that had happened because I don't want to give anybody any ideas out there, so to speak. But some of these are real life examples, but this one isn't, at least I know of. There was an example of a shooting at a polling place. 2 people died. How did we handle that situation? We literally had like a minute and a half to resolve this. As was going down. Everything eventually came down to what you have with the law enforcement, what kind of connections you have. In other words, I know I have connections with our sheriff's office. I have connections just on a personal basis. I have them with the city of Kingman, Lake Havasu, and Bullhead City. Okay, I knew who to get a hold of and when I got to get a hold of if something's going on. Okay, there's a person called a TLO, Threat Liaison Officer. Every county has them. Ours happens to be Lieutenant Padilla from the Sheriff's Office, a wonderful man to work with. These are the people that are trained in certain expertise. Now, people like Nathan, who's back up over there, Nathan can only prepare for so much, and he knows that, But if anything does indeed happen, I know I start contacting people. It's really what it comes down to it. And the ball has to be rolling, okay? I got to start contacting people from You know, the law enforcement, I got to, you know, it's always a starting point in our risk management department. And then Nathan, he'll have somebody on call, like, you know, from the moment, like from 4 o'clock in the morning on. Okay? We have people like Roger. I had Roger sitting in my office last election almost all day long. So he has to be able to move on a mad moment if something happens. We just basically learned this. We didn't learn how to do anything. You don't learn how to take care of this or take care of that. You just learn that things are out there in situational awareness and how to take care of yourself. And I think basically we all did pretty good, you know? So I was happy that I went. I was happy that I went a couple of years ago, and I hope they continue to do these things, and I'm glad I got to share this with you. So has you got any questions or anything for the last guy of the day?
Cold.
Mr. Chairman?
Supervisor Johnson.
Well, we wouldn't have to have you give us this briefing if somebody would have invited one of the supervisors that was on the invite list. That was my big reason for bringing it up. That's all I have.
Supervisor Angus.
Thanks, Alan. Which person in this group designated who's in charge of making sure ballot harvesters are not stuffing ballot boxes in Arizona?
Well, I don't know. That would have been the elections director or recorder of my group that we would have had, you know? But for if you're talking real life scenario.
Was it addressed at all?
No, that portion wasn't addressed. Okay. You know, whatever weirdo situations they come up with or something, but that could have been during that 6 months leading in part of the exercise.
Supervisor Lingenfelter.
I think that was a bonus session. Anybody that wanted to stay after it could watch 2,000 Mules after the regular exercise was done.
Mr. Chairman.
County Manager.
Just a clarification and a follow-up. Supervisor Johnson pointed out that no one from the board was invited, and yet when Alan read who was invited, it did say a representative from a board of supervisor. When the emails came out, the list that Alan read was listed as such. We assumed, just as Alan was notified and IT was notified and Roger was notified, that a Board of Supervisor office was notified. We were unaware, no notification was made. Additionally, not that we need to, but the county manager's office was really not notified, so we were unaware that no one from the 5 districts was not notified. So for future, we have asked the folks that organized and put this together to include us to the list, and we will see to it that either the chair of the Board of Supervisors or a person that the chairperson delegates it to is notified and is given an option to make that decision to attend or not attend. So we'll see to it going forward. Apologies for the fact that not a single district office of the 5 districts was notified of this last one. Just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you, sir. Well, Alan, it sounds like you had as much fun as I did when I went to FEMA training in Maryland, but I had to go for a week, so.
Yeah, I cut mine to 6 or 7 hours.
There you go. Plus, got good Mexican food in Phoenix. Any further questions for Alan? Hearing none. Thank you, sir.
Thank you all.
Anything else for the good of the order? We're adjourned.